Welcome back to Agro TV, where vintage iron still teaches. Today we're counting down 10 forgotten tractor features that you'll never see anymore. Not whole tractors, features. Bold ideas that once defined how farms worked, then faded as machines became faster, cleaner, safer. Think friction drive transmissions that glided instead of shifting, two-wheel power units that made the implement the rear axle, hot bulb singles lit by a cartridge, rear-engine tool carriers with belly-mounted cultivators, half-track hybrids that clawed for traction, cross-motor layouts with side belt pulleys, modular power units that swapped into combines, open-chain crawlers greased daily, paraffins TVO fuel systems with worm finals, and multi-fuel hot bulb brutes that ran on whatever the farm had. We'll show what each feature got right, why it vanished, standardized three-point hitches, live PTOs, multi-cylinder diesels, sealed cabs, road speeds, safety, and how their fingerprints still live in today's hydraulics, hitches, and drivelines. Like, share, subscribe. Now let's fire them up one last time. On Agro TV. Number 10. Heider Model C 1220, 1914 to 1923. Meet the Heider Model C 12-20, the oddball with a friction drive heart. Instead of a stack of gears, it used fiber discs pressed against a steel drum, changing speed with a single lever. No gear clash, no grinding, stepless motion forward or back. On small farms it meant easy starts, mild clutching, and fewer broken teeth. Its light chassis and kerosene four-cylinder made honest power, while a belt pulley ran saws and shellers. Farmers liked how quietly it crept to a load. Why did it disappear? Fiber discs wore, oil and dust glazed them. Heavy drawbar work demanded constant adjustment, and the world shifted to standardized gearboxes, live hydraulics, and three-point hitches. Dealers stocked parts for drivetrains, not experiments, and mechanics preferred gear sets. The Heider faded, but the lesson stayed. Smooth control speeds work, and a hum beats gear whine when the belt comes tight. Number 9. Moline Universal Model D, 1917 to 1923. Meet the Moline Universal Model D, a tractor that flipped the script. Not a four-wheeler, but a two-wheel power unit pinned to a cultivator or planter so the implement became the rear axle. Hook up and you had a nimble outfit. The operator sat over the tool, watching shovels inches away. Market gardeners loved its precision. It slipped into tight headlands, crept low, and turned on a dime without crushing plants. Paraffin fuel cut costs. Why did it vanish? Farms wanted one tractor to do everything. Great at cultivation, but clumsy at heavy drawbar work. Hauling the tool frame was a pain. Then three-point hitches, live PTOs, and better hydraulics let ordinary tractors do the same jobs with less fuss. Dealers standardized parts, safety disliked exposed linkages, and road speed mattered more each year. It faded, but the idea lives on in tool carriers, quick hitch systems, and precision planters. See the work, steer the work, own the work. Number 8. Field Marshal Series 2, 1945 to 1953. Field Marshal Series 2 is the soundtrack of post-war Britain. The single huge cylinder, hot bulb head glowing, cartridge cracked in the breech, flywheel heaved over, and then that slow catink that dragged a plow through clay while sipping heavy oil. Farmers bought it because it ran on almost anything: diesel, TVO, furnace oil, and because the layout was brutally simple. One big piston meant few moving parts. A massive crank, thick bearings, and open access let a village mechanic keep it alive with hand tools and patience. The gearbox was honest, the governor steady, and the hot bulb single with cartridge or rope start made independence possible. You primed the lubricators, warmed the bulb with a torch or popped a paper cartridge, and felt the machine wake like a blacksmith's bellows. But progress is a stern judge. As implements widened and hours lengthened, operators wanted smoother multi-cylinder diesels, electric starting, more working ratios, live hydraulics, standardized three-point hitches, better brakes, and cabs that saved ears. The big single shook at speed, its transport manners were poor, and the ritual that once felt heroic cost precious minutes on a frosty morning. Dealers consolidated around standardized families, spares pipelines favored common engines, and the field marshal formula looked like yesterday beside rivals from Fordson, Ferguson, and later Massey-Harris Ferguson. The Series 2 faded from frontline acres, migrating to yard duty, saw benches, and preservation. Yet its legacy endures. It proved fuel flexibility can keep a farm working in hard years, that accessibility and rebuildability matter like horsepower, and that reliability is a kind of wealth. Listen at a match and you'll hear the starter's bark, the first cough, and then that deep cadence settling into load. Watch the belt tighten and the thresher begin to chew, and you can read an economy in motion. Simple parts, practiced hands, and a machine designed to turn stubborn fuel into steady work. Number 7. Allis-Chalmers Model G, 1948 to 1955. Allis-Chalmers Model G put the engine behind the operator and the work in plain sight. By hanging the power unit at the rear and sliding a toolbar beneath the belly, the G let market gardeners watch shovels, planters, and knives trim the row with surgeon-like accuracy. The wheelbase was short, the steering light, the turning radius tiny. Beds stayed intact, onions and carrots survived headlands, and cultivating became a calm, repeatable craft. A thrifty Continental 4-cylinder and a straightforward gearbox kept upkeep friendly, while the tool carrier accepted clever attachments for seeding, weeding, and bed shaping. It was a specialist that made one person feel like a crew. Why is this layout gone? Because farms demanded do-everything tractors. The G's horsepower was modest, road speed slow, and its rear engine balance, so perfect for precision, limited loaders, trailers, and heavy drawbar work. Herbicides reduced hand cultivation. Larger utilities with 3-point hitches and live hydraulics mounted the same tools in minutes and then pulled a baler after lunch. Dealers consolidated, parts pipelines chased volume, and safety rules frowned at exposed linkages and seats over moving iron. Yet the G's lesson survived. Modern quick hitch carriers, high-visibility compacts, camera-aided vegetable rigs, and battery-electric tool carriers all trace a line back to this nimble orange original. Restorers still lay out beds with a Model G, rolling slow enough to count sunflower seeds as they drop. Listen to the soft exhaust, watch the shovels dance exactly beneath the driver's feet, and you can feel how a simple change of layout turned guesswork into control. You can also see why, once farms scaled up and days lengthened, the industry folded the idea into more powerful platforms and left the little genius to history. In the right field and season, nothing matches its grace. A tractor that lets hands see soil, steer by sight, and finish narrow rows clean on the first pass. Number 6. Twin City 40 to 65, 1919 to 1929. Twin Cities 40 to 65 was a giant of the transition years, a broad-shouldered standard tractor with a huge opposed 2-cylinder engine that fired like a clock. Long strokes, low revs, and flywheel mass turned poor roads and heavy soil into steady work. The governor tugged the throttle and the machine simply leaned in. On steel lugs it hauled wide plows and big threshers, then idled at the belt pulley with a slow, confident beat. Controls were straightforward, lubrication generous, and access good enough that a careful crew could keep it earning with wrenches and oil cans. It represented a design path now forgotten. Enormous twin-cylinder power plants, exposed finals, drawbar farming done at walking speed, and the assumption that a day's value was measured in hours of pull, not miles traveled. Why has this style vanished? Because agriculture outgrew it. Row crop systems demanded adjustable tread and nimble steering. Hydraulics and quick hitches demanded centered PTOs and compact driveline paths. Transport speeds climbed, and operators expected brakes, lights, and comfort. The big twin thumped beautifully but shook implements, drank fuel at road speed, and asked a lot of its driver on long moves between scattered acres. Multi-cylinder diesels arrived with smoother torque and better economy. Rubber tires transformed flotation. Sealed gear cases cut dust and downtime. Manufacturers standardized around inline engines, modular transmissions, and frames that could carry loaders, cabs, and ever wider tools. Dealers chased platforms with shared parts, and the 40/65's architecture looked like yesterday's answer. Yet its legacy remains vivid at plow days and shows. When a 40 to 65 settles into a furrow, each beat nudges the ground forward, and spectators feel the cadence of an era when reliability mattered more than speed. It reminds us that power is a conversation between weight, gearing, and soil, and that slow, unstoppable drawbar can be a kind of grace under pressure. Field poetry. Number 5. Samson Model M, 1917 to 1922. Samson's Model M was General Motors' gamble that an automobile company could scale farm power. Built in the late 1910s with lessons borrowed from Chevrolet, the M used an automotive-style gearbox, worm gear finals, and a tidy four-cylinder that started easily and ran clean. Farmers met a tractor that felt familiar, a clutch that behaved, gears that shifted without drama, and controls laid out like a car's. It towed plows and discs, then belted threshers and pumps from a practical pulley. On decent ground, it was quick to the field and quick home again. The proposition was modernity. Bring the assembly line logic and dealer reach of Detroit to the granary. So why did the Model M vanish? Because the farm is not a boulevard. Worm finals ran hot when pushed. The transmission that charmed at light loads proved less happy pulling hard in gumbo, and the tractor's weight and balance did not love steel lugs on hills. Competitors tuned drivetrains for dirt first and pavement second, added draft-sensing hydraulics later, and expanded parts networks that spoke fluent agriculture. Meanwhile, GM reorganized. The Samson unit was folded, dealers shifted focus, and spares thinned. Owners seeking more drawbar and lower gears soon chose rivals, and many MS worked to the end. Yet the idea it carried, apply automotive service, ergonomics, and production discipline to farm iron, survived and ultimately won. Walk around any modern utility tractor and you meet Samson's hopes realized. Clearer dashboards, smoother clutches, better seats, and dealers who stock what breaks. Collectors still favor the M because it tells a true story. Novelty must answer soil, not sales copy. When a good one idles at a belt, the straight four's even beat reminds you why farmers wanted civility. When it noses into a tough furrow and the worm gears warm, you remember why the industry kept searching. The Model M faded, but the bridge it tried to build between road and field became the highway everyone else now uses. Number 4. Minneapolis-Moline Uni-Tractor, 1951 to 1964. Minneapolis-Moline's Uni-Tractor was a 1950s attempt to make one power unit do many jobs. Instead of buying a separate tractor, combine, picker, or swather, the farmer bought a single 2062-83 powered chassis and quick-mount modules. Roll into the shed, drop the stands, pin the subframe, couple shafts, and the Uni became a self-propelled combine. Swap again and it turned into a 2-row picker, forage harvester, windrower, or sprayer. The pitch was simple. One engine to maintain, one operator's seat, one dealer to call, and off-season work for the same unit. In the field it felt planted, with high-seat sightlines and ample power. So why did it vanish? Complexity and timing. Swaps took longer than brochures promised, and breakdowns sidelined not just an attachment but the farm's harvesting capacity. Attachments grew wider, stressing a frame that had to be both tractor and harvester. Meanwhile, dedicated combines exploded in capacity, corn heads expanded, forage harvesters demanded more ponies, and ordinary tractors gained better hydraulics and faster hookups. Dealers struggled to stock specialized parts, and training techs for a small market platform was costly. Road moves between scattered fields punished gearing. Cab comfort lagged. Rising expectations for safety and dust control made the open modular layout feel dated. By the late 1960s, many owners parked modules and kept the power unit for odd jobs, then traded the idea for a big combine and a dependable row crop. Yet the Uni's legacy is clear. It proved modular thinking can cut cost, showed that visibility matters when feeding a pickup head, and argued that service access should be generous. Modern tractors with quick couplers and Isobus monitors echo its dream of one smart power unit driving many tools. At shows, a tidy Uni still turns heads as a module slides into place. The pins drop, the 6 settles to idle, and you feel the optimism of an era that tried to make one machine do everything before specialization won. Number 3. Massey-Harris GP, late 1920s. Massey-Harris's GP, general purpose, chased the late 1920s dream of one tractor for row crops. It carried a tricycle nose with a single or close twin wheel, tall clearance, and sliding rear tread so the driver could straddle corn, beets, or cotton without flattening plants. A long chassis put the engine and steering ahead and the operator above the work, with cultivator gangs beneath where sight lines mattered. A thrifty four-cylinder, lightweight and straightforward gears made the GP nimble, and the belt pulley ran mills and shellers after the rows were clean. The narrow front was the star. It pivoted tight at headlands and snaked down rows with almost surgical accuracy. So why did the layout disappear? Scale and safety. Tricycle fronts were twitchy on rough roads and perilous on slopes. As horsepower, loaders, and transport speed grew, the narrow pivot became a liability. ROPS, better brakes and lighting, and the move to wide front axles and power steering reset expectations for stability. At the same time, implements ballooned in width and tractors adopted three-point hitches and live hydraulics, turning cultivation into a high-speed, wide-swath job that favored long wheelbases and front-wheel drive. Factories and dealers simplified parts around safer, heavier platforms, and the graceful GP silhouette slipped to parades and matches. Yet it left fingerprints. Adjustable tread and true sightlines boost accuracy. Predictable handling beats pure turning radius. Operator view can matter as much as power. Walk around a restored GP and you can read the blueprint of row crop geometry in its bones. Rear wheels slid in or out, cultivator frames tucked under the belly, and the driver high enough to see work. It's gone from fields, but it survives in the habits of today. Set the track to the crop, put the operator where the work is, and design a chassis that treats plants gently while it gets acres done. That is the GP's quiet legacy. Precision first, then power, then speed. Number 2. Fordson Model N, 1933 to 1945. Fordson's Model N was the austerity tractor that pulled Britain through the 1930s. Stamped steel construction and mass production kept the price reachable. A paraffin system with a small petrol start tank let it burn cheap fuel once warm. Worm gear finals put draft low and steady at walking pace. On lugs or early pneumatics, the N broke sod, hauled carts, and belted threshers, chaff cutters, and pumps. Controls were simple. A novice learned in an afternoon. It mechanized tiny holdings. The forgotten feature here is the paraffin economy and the pre-standard era it represents. No three-point hitch, no live PTO, short gear sets, and safety delivered by habit. Why did such a success vanish? Because success begot replacement. In 1939, the Ford Ferguson 9N arrived with a draft-sensing three-point hitch, turning implement and tractor into one controllable tool, resetting expectations. As farms demanded quicker headland turns, repeatable depth, faster road travel, and loader work, buyers wanted more ratios, stronger brakes, and later steering and lights. The N's worm finals and rigid drawbar felt old, attachments were slow to mount, and the platform lacked hydraulic finesse and the protection that soon became normal. War and rationing reshaped supply. The 2N bridged shortages, and post-war models with live hydraulics pushed the old layout to the hedgerow. Dealers focused parts on newer lines, and safety campaigns frowned on practices the N was never built to prevent. Yet its legacy is everywhere. It proved low-cost factory tractors could replace horses on small acreages, that service networks matter as much as horsepower, and that simple, rebuildable engines can carry a nation through lean years. Restorers still crank a warm N, hear the even 4 beat, and mow a pasture at a steady pace. Each pass explains why it mattered. Not glamour, but the power to make ordinary work predictable day after day, when the real crop was survival and the harvest was time saved for the next job. Number 1. Lanz Bulldog D9506, 1921 to 1960. The Lanz Bulldog D9506 is the poster child of hot bulb tractors, a single big cylinder making tidal torque at a steady beat, running on whatever fuel a hard season allowed. To start one, farmers heated the bulb with a blowtorch, tugged the flywheel by hand, and as the first cough became a thud, the Bulldog drank diesel, kerosene, furnace oil, or rough mixes a carburetor would refuse. Everything about it prized survival. Huge bearings, simple lubrication, a rugged clutch, wide flywheels to tame the pulse, and service points a village mechanic could reach. In clay it lugged a plow without drama. On lanes it hauled beat wagons, and at the belt it powered threshers through long days on miserly fuel. So why did the design vanish? Because expectations sprinted ahead. The hot bulb ritual cost cold morning minutes, the single lung shook implements, transport speed was poor, and there was no live hydraulics, no three-point hitch, and little comfort. After the war, smooth multi-cylinder diesels with electric start and standardized mounting systems reset the bar. When John Deere absorbed Lanz, the factory built modern tractors that carried the business forward but not the formula. Bit by bit the D9506 retreated to small acres and yard duty, then into barns and collections. Yet its legacy remains where scarcity and ingenuity meet. It proved that multi-fuel resilience can keep a farm moving when supply is thin, that slow combustion and long stroke can turn cheap fuel into steady work, and that rebuildable simplicity is a kind of security. At shows, the ritual still draws a crowd. The hiss of the torch, the first cough, the flywheel settling into an even beat as the exhaust pops. Stand by that beat and hear an era, thrift, patience, and iron to be mended, not tossed. The Bulldog vanished from frontline fields, but its imprint endures in talk of traction, fuel flexibility, and durability, and in every grin as the one-cylinder giant gets hot, takes a breath, and goes back to work.